Welcome to another edition of Storms of Fury. Yes, we've been talking a whole lot about what's happened in the past. We've been talking about what's happening down the road. Always trying to get that part right. Doesn't always work. But something we really had right was back 30 plus years ago. And very excited today to have my colleague, my partner with the New England Weather Service, back when we had a company that we took care of so many different clients, including Northeast Utilities. And, well, his name, and you may know him and remember him, Dave Goldbaum. Welcome. David, how are you?
I'm doing fine. How are you, Joe?
I'm wonderful, David. Dave and I go way, way back. Dave, as you can see, is a senior meteorologist at FedEx. Now, one day I was talking to Dave, and I said Federal Express, and he laughed at me. So it's FedEx, not Federal Express, correct? That's the old way to do it. Okay, so we go back a long ways. We were just joking off air about our mic checks, my mic check being partly cloudy, breezy, and mild. Dave's had some mic checks that he remembers from the past. Who's Hilton Catterley? What did he do?
That was the mic check, weather mic.
There we go. See? Mike. There we go. And speaking of which, Dave goes all the way back to when my kids were born. And my oldest, Ginger, 32 years old now, and she is the one that named Dave. She named him Doppler Dave. She was like 2 years old, and I'll have to be honest, one of the first words out of her mouth was Doppler, because I used to say it to her in the car all the time. So she came out with Doppler one day. And then, as far as Dave was concerned, she coined him Doppler Dave. So, right? How about that? That was kind of cool, wasn't it?
It was absolutely cool. And, you just brought up something about Doppler, is that we were so fortunate to have our own in-house Doppler. We may not have realized it at the time. That was such a valuable tool that
nobody had it. Yeah, we were the first television station east of the Mississippi to have a Doppler radar in-house. Our wonderful, wonderful creator, boss, mentor, Arnold Chase, put together the New England Weather Service, and it was a $1 million facility. He wanted to take over for where Travelers Weather had left off. And we had talked recently with Bruce DePriest about that and the Travelers Weather Service and all the great people there. And so, yeah, having the Doppler radar was a tremendous tool. And we were new on the scene, and we came in gangbusters, and everybody else was like, wow, what is going on here? So what do you remember about how we started out 30 plus years ago and what we were doing, and where are we now compared to where we were 30 years ago?
Well, I think having that Doppler and having the tools at our disposal really set us up to be successful as the years went on, especially having that Doppler. I mean, it was live. We had access to the maps being overlaid on the Doppler radar. We can go and communicate to our audience, where the storms are, mentioning their towns. And of course, a lot of people like to hear how, their names were mentioned on the air. So that was great too. We were able to, that Doppler radar had a joystick. It was like a video game almost. We used to, be able to stop and start the scan and, go through and figure out, what the intensity of the storm is and whether there was hail in the storm and which direction it was moving. There was so much at our disposal then. And now, of course, fast forward 30 years, the National Weather Service has implemented Doppler radar network throughout the United States, and we have access to that on our phones, nonetheless. So, we're quite up to date now as far as what's happening weather-wise, and things have progressed. We have tons and tons of models we can look at, and one of the things that I kind of one of my pet peeves, right, to hear nowadays still is that, people will be like, you are wrong 80% of the time. And, of course, people don't know much about statistics. So you just pull that statistic out of the air. But, if people were to actually follow me, and I encourage them, like, I'll pay for you to, stay at my house, follow me to work, and then keep track of how well we do. And I got to tell you, most of the time we're actually right, because you have to actually count the sunny days too. we communicate that to the public as well.
Now, David, and by the way, Dave's coming to us from Memphis, Tennessee, where FedEx headquarters are, and you've got a fire going behind him there, the fireplace. We're at 65 degrees, so we really, are a little jealous of what you guys have had down there as far as weather, although you did have that one spat of snow ice. So, Dave, explain to us what you do. We talk about weather in terms of, the ground and so on and so forth, but you are an aviation forecaster. So you are guiding the planes thousands of miles around. So tell us, what exactly does an aviation meteorologist do?
Yeah, well, there's definitely a different focus on what we forecast for. The typical, people will typically think about weather folk, talking about what the high temperature is going to be for the day. They want questions answered. Can I go to the beach today? Do I need to shovel? How much snow are we going to get? That sort of thing. In the aviation weather business, there are very specific parameters that we have to forecast for in a coded format. So it's coded. Most people will not be able to read the code unless you're a meteorologist or a pilot or an airline dispatcher or somebody else within the aviation business. And within that code, there are, like I said, specific meteorological parameters that we forecast for. Cloud heights are very important for the aviation business. So the ceilings of the clouds, the cloud bases we forecast for. In that, by the way, it's called a TAF. TAF is the acronym. Stands for Terminal Aerodrome Forecast. And in that TAF ceilings, the heights of those ceilings, whether it's an overcast, whether it's broken, whether there are breaks in the clouds, scattered, or even clear. And within that TAF, there's a wind speed and direction, any wind shear that's going on, precipitation or lack thereof that shows up in that TAF. Of course, the time frame that these parameters are occurring, typically 24 hours out, but in some cases, because we have several main locations for FedEx, they'll go out maybe 36 hours for a forecast. So again, there's not so much focus on temperature or how much rain or snow falls. It's more geared toward, again, what those ceilings are, what the wind direction is, what the wind speed is, and if there's any wind shear, anything that's or thunderstorms for that matter. Thunderstorms are in the TAF. That's a biggie. Okay, that all affects airplanes taking off, landing, or en route.
How do you determine when the storms are there and the plane? How do you know, like, how to guide them around? Like, how you must have to really pay close attention, because if you fly them into one of those, you got a big problem.
Yeah, well, and the thing is, in the role that I have, or the other fellow meteorologists that are in my department, we supply the information, right? We're the experts on what's going to happen with the weather. But as far as routing the aircraft, we have that information for weather, but other groups have the ability to take that information and make that determination as far as the routes are concerned, namely the dispatchers. So the dispatchers, another professional group within our organization, takes that weather information and says, okay, here are the best routes that we can take. Here are some alternate stations that we can use just in case we can't land the plane in Memphis or in Indianapolis. We'll have to land it somewhere else. And how much gas goes on the plane? Can we? Is the weather such that we may, is there fog? And if there's fog, will that aircraft be able to? And I'm sure a lot of people have experienced this. If there's bad weather at a location when you're traveling and they need to land and they can't, sometimes they'll kind of circle around in the air for a while, and that's extra gas. So the dispatchers are the ones that actually, say, hey, maybe we need to put extra fuel on this aircraft just in case we need to circle around in the air. So again, there are other departments that utilize the weather information to make their decisions on their end.
Exactly. Very interesting. Okay, so in terms of everything that's going on right now, David, you are immensely intelligent. You've done so many things. You teach. By the way, you've flown in these aircrafts with the packages, correct?
Yeah, not so much with FedEx, but when I did work for one of their competitors, which is UPS,
Yes.
back in the 2000s, I did have jump seat privileges, and I was able to go on the different aircraft because I was traveling back and forth from well, UPS's hub is in Louisville, Kentucky, and at the time I was living in Phoenix, so I was kind of commuting back and forth. But yeah, I had the ability to fly on the aircraft in the cockpit with the pilots.
Oh, that's cool. All right. Dave Goldbaum, meteorologist, FedEx. Thank you so much. You are amazing. If you got any insights on what maybe any storms that are coming up down the road, let's talk about that, because this has been one very active winter, at least up here.
Yeah, that's for sure. And I do want to say thank you very much for having me on. This is great. I had no idea that you were doing a podcast. And if you think of any other topics that you want me to be involved with, I'll be more than happy to come on.
David, I can't wait. We've got plenty more down the road, so we will see you again. Ladies and gentlemen, meteorologist David Goldbaum, senior meteorologist for FedEx. David, thanks so much. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, Joe. Take care.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. All right. Meteorologist Dave Goldbaum. Wonderful to work with him back at the New England Weather Service. And, he's an aviation meteorologist expert. You think about the fact when you take a flight on a plane, what's going on up in the sky is a whole lot different than what's happening down here at the surface. So understanding what's happening up there is extremely important to get us where we need to go safely, whether it be his pilots and the packages or us heading for our destinations. Of course, this winter, destinations to a warmer climate. When you look at places like Denver, Colorado, with their second warmest winter, or maybe the warmest winter on record now, Bismarck, North Dakota is 20 degrees above average in February of 2026. Where Dave was, it was 65 today. He'll be in the 70s tomorrow again in Memphis, Tennessee. So the warmth has not been able to get in here because we just have this tremendous push of cold. And when you look at how everything has gone, and when we got into February, we were thinking, okay, can this February rival February of 2015? Now, we tend to forget, the big bad winters. And really, it's been since 2019, 2020, where we have not had much in the way of winter weather. As a matter of fact, there was more snow in that one snowstorm back in January than what we had in 4 Januaries put together since 2020. So think about that. So that's why our mindset has been, hey, the winter is not so bad anymore, until all of a sudden you say that and something happens. Now, February of 2015, when you look at January 2015 came in at around 4 degrees below average, which was colder than this January. And then February of 2015, 13.5 degrees below average, and the amounts of snow tremendous. And then March of 2015 came in 6 degrees below average with quite a bit of snow. So the last time we've had a really, really harsh winter is 2015, January, February, and March. December of that winter was pretty mild, and then everything changed. So what's changed this winter in terms of February? February at one point in time, the first week was about 12.5 degrees below average, and then we've kind of gotten the February thaw. We've gotten to 40 degrees, which we think is wonderful. And, well, let's just go back and take a look at 2015 and see what happened. Yes, February of 2015 was a tremendous onslaught of snow. Boston, Massachusetts, in February of 2015, received 65 inches of snow. That exceeds an entire winter in a big way. And the snow mounds that were tremendous. You talk about not being able to see when you're walking out into the road or trying to drive. Boston was shut down, paralyzed for quite a while. And look at that snow pile there. Unbelievable. And here in Connecticut, yes, we had over 30 inches of snow, 32 inches to be exact. We had 11 days in February of 2015 with the morning low below zero. Yes, we held on to the extreme for that entire month. So this year, we had the extreme going, but we don't have the precipitation going. As a matter of fact, there's been 0.14 inches of liquid so far in February of 2026. Contrast that to February of 2015, 32 inches of snow here, 65 inches up in Boston. Yeah, the overall pattern, and one of the big reasons here why we haven't gotten a lot of snow is that the cold's coming straight at us. We had a little bit of a change back in January where the cold was going a little more out west, and we certainly, had things dropping. We had the jet dropping down into the Gulf. We had storm form, and we got the one big storm to come out of the southwest United States. We had a 2,300-mile winter storm warning, and our friends down south, like in Louisiana, Mississippi, Memphis, over to Nashville especially, over to the Carolinas, this winter has been harsh for them. And there are some places that have had more snow down there than in some places in Connecticut. Carolina coast, the Outer Banks had 1.5 feet. That was a storm a couple of weeks ago that missed. We just missed one yesterday out to our south. That could have been another 1.5 feet of snow. So the bottom line, the pattern is still here. It's not changing. And there are signs that maybe things are shifting a little bit back again. And now as we go through this second half of February into the start of March, that Mother Nature's pounding at us again. So the bottom line, we have a succession of storm systems that are coming at us. And is there a big one about to happen? We'll talk about it coming up. Hi, everyone. All right, welcome back to segment 3 here as we ride our way through meteorological winter. We talk about December, 4.5 degrees below average in Connecticut. January, 3.1 degrees below average. And that one big snowstorm. And then February, which now all of a sudden goes, from 12.5 degrees below average to about maybe 7 below average. So we've been seeing the average for the month improve. Your heating bill, the energy that's been pushed out. I know I saw my electric bill for January, and that was a little frightening. So we have, probably about 2.5, 3 inches of liquid in the snow out there that's slowly melting, which is a good thing because, you get into the springtime, you got a frozen Connecticut River, you bring big rainstorms and big warmth, and all of a sudden all the snow melts up north, and you have a huge Connecticut River flooding potential. So that's something we're continuing to monitor. But we continue to monitor the overall weather pattern. Now, just a few things to note as we go down the road here. We know the sun's been crazy, and we know that correlates to extreme weather. We know El Nino is coming back as we go into the spring. That will be interesting to see how that all relates to. And again, if it's coming back, it's coming back pretty fast right now. Your subtropical jet gets more active. And we've talked about this in the past. If you have an active subtropical jet because of El Nino and the cold that keeps on coming, that's a bad combination going into spring. In other words, we know March can be a very difficult month. And so it feels like we've had a little break here in February. And now, the battle of the air masses is going on. All that warmth out west trying to push in here. Chicago's been in the 60s. And so you may have noticed in Connecticut on Tuesday, the 17th of February, we're hazy, foggy, and inversion in play as the warm air is aloft. That sets up situations like freezing rain that can be around as we go into the 18th in the morning. And then we've got another system coming in that demarcation battle zone area between the warm and cold. This can be a little snow and mix, maybe a 1 to 3, 2 to 4 inch type thing going into Friday. And then we go into Sunday and Monday. And now here we are with another huge coastal storm. Keep in mind, we have missed 2 major storms over the course of the last 3 weeks. One that brought 1.5 feet of snow and a blizzard to Cape Hatteras, North Carolina, of all places, and one that just missed during the course of earlier this mid-February week. So another one is going to be there Sunday into Monday, and we're talking about the potential for heavy wet snow and very strong winds. We have a lot of computer models that are in agreement. What's interesting is the European model is not in agreement to that, but all the rest of them are. A very interesting scenario to see, is the European just out to lunch, or does the European get a coup here and the rest of them are wrong? So again, we've seen it. We've seen the storms be there. We've had one. In a pattern like this, it only stands to reason that there's another big one to happen. This time, though, I mean, the storm we had back in January, perfect. Dry, powdery snow, wind not too bad, moving it not too bad, although you guys on the coast got some sleet in there. So the idea that heavy, wet snow with big, strong 50-mile-per-hour winds, big coastal flooding, big power outage potential, yeah, that's the kind of situation we set ourselves up for in a weather pattern like this. And so, yes, we'll be monitoring the situation very closely as we go into this weekend. It's hard to believe February is going to be ending the following weekend. Yeah, the shortest month of the year feels like the longest month of the year. And so, yes, we'd be taking ourselves out of meteorological winter, knowing full well that the month of March very much can be winter around here. As a matter of fact, March averages almost as much snow as February. We haven't had much this month. You guys in Eastern Connecticut had one little bout, but the idea for, 2-3 inches at most so far, yeah, it's time to say, hey, there may be a big one coming, and it would be coming as we go for the 22nd, 23rd of February, and this one can be a whole lot different than the last one. And, yes, Mother Nature causing some trouble in this winter of 25-26. Obviously, not nearly as intense as what happened back 11 years ago right now. But if, Mother Nature decides to start throwing the punches again, well, maybe the month of February and into March is going to be something we remember. So that's where we are right now. We'll keep you updated on air, online. We're right here all the time to talk about things that are going on. If you have anything that you want to hear talked about, any ideas on things, any stories to tell, always get a hold of us here at WTNH. My email is joseph.furey@WTNH.com. And we'd love to hear from you, and maybe we can talk on here at some point in time about anything interesting that you have. So that's the very latest. It's, going to be very much appreciated. Spring in New England this year. By the way, the water temperature in Long Island Sound is 30 degrees, one of the coldest readings we've seen in a long, long time. All right, I hope you're staying healthy. It's been tough this year, and we'll see you again on the next edition of Storms of Fury. Bye.